Wonderful. How did you first hear about this show and what appealed to you about it?
I got sent in for it. I have an agent and it was an audition that came up. And I remember reading Peggy's character breakdown and immediately feeling this sort of kinship with her. I've played a lot of women from the 1800s and none of them have been written to be Black. And so it was really exciting to see someone that I felt like I had so much in common with, but of this time period. And so that was really what drew me to the project.
Yeah, similar to Denée, I have an agent and they sent me a request to audition for this. And I was so excited because I've always been a huge Downton Abbey fan. And so I was actually doing Romeo and Juliet at the Old Globe Theater at the time. And someone else in the cast was also auditioning for another role in the show. And so we helped each other put ourselves on tape, which was sweet. And then, I went through various callbacks and it happened. But it was really exciting. The thing that drew me to it was, as I said, I love Julian Fellows's work, especially for Downton Abbey. And I also really liked the idea of playing an ingenue that has more to her that's going on than the eye can see, and someone who yearns for something more when she is in a very strict kind of box, and she's sort of figuring out what that is and where she can rebel, what boundaries can she push. And yeah, it's quite exciting.
I do feel like both of these characters feel like they're way ahead of their times in a lot of ways. Do you ever get the sense that they don't quite belong in this show's universe because they're so future facing?
It's interesting. I'm always a little annoyed by that point of view because I think it kind of says that people were not capable of critical analysis at every point in history. And I think as women, and then as a Black woman, there have always been people at every point in history who were aware enough to be critical of their societies. And that's the only way I know that sort of lineage of my ancestry has always existed. And so I think really it's the question of, why have we been taught that these people didn't have these thoughts and didn't have these sort of senses of their own desire for sovereignty? And so I think what has been really exciting for me is to read pieces from this time, to read writings from writers like Peggy at that time who were grappling and asking the same questions that we are asking today. So yeah, it's very humanizing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Edith Wharton was commenting on this institution of marriage and women as decorative objects to be sort of passed around, and the fact that they were expected to be fulfilled from that was kind of limiting and ridiculous. So I think she had her own criticism of that through her novels, which is where I got a lot of my inspiration for Marian was through House of Mirth and Age of Innocence. And also Henry James wrote Portrait of a Lady, which at the time was sort of progressive, but it was about a woman who was not just chill with looking pretty and getting married and having money. Like, I think women have always wanted things and have been ambitious. It's just
what narrative do we tell about them?
Yes, exactly.
I like that perspective. Thank you. And this, of course, is such a great cast. Is there anyone you were particularly excited or intimidated to work with among your co-stars?
Everyone. I think for me, when I found out that Audra was being considered to play my mom, a literal single tear escaped from my eye before I could even get myself together. For a young Black musical theater actress, like, Audra is the woman that we look up to. Like, she represents it in so many ways for my generation. And so the idea that I would sit in college staring at her YouTube videos, crying and hoping, and then she's going to play my mother, it was just beyond exciting in every possible way.
Yeah.
Anyone for you, Louisa?
Yeah, I would say everybody. Cynthia Nixon, I've been a fan of hers forever. I voted for her. I think she's awesome, funny. I'm a huge fan, so it was exciting to work with her so closely. And just all the women, I have to say, I mean, the men were amazing as well, but the women on the show were just so nurturing and lovely. Like, it was such, I don't know what I would have done without them on this project. Yeah, it was wonderful. They were lovely.
Yeah, and it's such a large ensemble. And while your characters do get to interact with a lot of the characters, is there anybody whose storylines just didn't overlap with Peggy and Marian that you wish you had shared screen time or story space with?
I really wish I got to be in that Russell house in some points. I feel like George and Bertha to me are two of the most kind of like authentically represented characters in the way that they get to be villainous. And it's so exciting to me. And Peggy has no reason to meet George Russell, nor do I think Peggy Scott would have wanted to meet George Russell, but I would have been excited to be in some of those scenes with Morgan.
Yeah, I wonder what Marian would think of Turner, because Marian's just so lovely. She's like,
so wholesome.
I can learn from her. She's so gracious and kind, and like has the capacity to see the good in everyone, even if they're a crazy, greedy, manipulative capitalist like George Russell. I think, Marian still is like, well, maybe he's nice. I wonder what Marian would think of Turner and her ambitions and how she goes about, getting what she wants. Yeah, I never got to work with, also Celia downstairs, and I think her name is Mrs. Bruce. Yeah.
Well, great. It's a huge cast and a great show. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.